Hello, hello, hello. This is Sharon with UCDI Leadership, and this is Knowledge or Nonsense. Happy Saturday morning to everybody. I'm joined by Lisa Hyde, Lila Price, and Lorraine Perkins. And today we're going to talk about catharsis and now what? We've been in this pandemic for some months now. And with the stages of transition, at this point, that initial shock is over. And so now what? Now what are we going to do? Also, we're coming out of other things that people have been so focused on. And so we just kind of want to talk about some now what? Like how do we let go or switch your the focus? And so I am just going to be still for a moment and see what the other individuals have to say. How are y'all doing this Saturday morning?
Pretty good.
Good.
Pretty good.
Saturday. Great topic, Sharon. Great topic. I think it's about crisis management, right? But this is a international pandemic, and after every major event, whether it's a fire, we have some fire mitigation. If there's a crisis in the home, there's specialists that come in or should come in and help talk to the residents of the home. And in this particular international crisis, we have multiple leaders of all different shapes, sizes, and education backgrounds. Some are political, some are scientists. It's just so much going on that it's hard to nail down the management of a crisis on an individual level because you're dealing with so much. And case in point, this year, my oldest son graduated high school. And in many regards, in all regards, we're fortunate that he made it to this threshold. But there was also that feeling of, wow, he didn't get to walk down the aisle. Wow, he didn't get to walk across the stage. So that's a moment that's still his moment, but it's changed. And that you'll never be able to get back. So I think we simply have to do our best and do our part. And I think it has to start with just some conversations like this.
Yeah, and you said one of the things you said is like it's so much like crisis management. A lot of times, just the word crisis, kind of like the fight or flight, just the word crisis brings something to mind with a lot of people. And depending on where you are, your position, how you see it, your vantage point, you may have a limited view of crisis. You may only think of crisis where, the sky is falling, Chicken Little. But you're right. For the completion of a crisis, even like with school shootings or something traumatic, maybe it's not a shooting, they typically bring in people to help individuals process what navigate so that you're not stuck mentally, emotionally in a place that's going to prohibit you from moving forward, from being able to develop relationships, from being able to have a more, I want to say, hopeful view of the world. What do you think about that, Lila?
Crisis, we're all dealing with it on some level, right? But it's like perception is therefore my reality, but your perception is not my reality. So, and so we have to interact in this world. In most cases, for a lot of us, it's gone more virtual, right? We have to experience people and try to connect with them on some level, but not be physically in their presence. And I see the challenge even with my own son with school. I can totally relate to what Luann said. I had a senior that this past year as well that did not get to go those milestones in life, and went off to college and was but had to be okay with it. And I remember she said to me, I was just like, well, it's not after how she felt about it, but she was like, well, it's not just me. It's it's everyone. A lot of people didn't have that moment. And didn't get their prom and get to go through those final milestones as a senior in high school. And so I think those are the moments we have to kind of like step back emotionally and go, okay, it's not just me. And sometimes it's hard to kind of separate ourselves, but it's not just me. It's a lot of us going through these moments. And how do we kind of navigate through the process to have an understanding? And I think every day gets a little bit more challenging when you're trying to express, going back to trying to get some type of normal, what the new normal may be, not understanding how to deal with the crisis going around it because there's so much turmoil going on within the country. So you're trying to navigate through all of those emotional changes and still trying to have some type of normalcy in your own personal life. And So it's a lot going on, and people are challenged with that ongoing task every day of trying to find something to hold on to, and that their perception doesn't alter everything around them, and how they interact with everyone that they deal with.
I love what you said about how the perception doesn't alter everything, because when you started, you said it's perceptual reality, and then you said that the perception doesn't alter. But we're going to come back to that. Lisa, I wanted to ask you with the crisis, and it's like crisis management.
Yeah.
What are some things that stick out to you?
Right. And just have to say, it's one of those things where one of the phrases that I heard so much this year that's so overused now is this time of unexpected, or like, we don't know what's going to happen. Everything is up in the air. Everything is like, uncertain times. And I kind of am tired of that, because now we know it's all going to be uncertain, but maybe it's expected change or certain change. Like, we are now in a place where we can be prepared for whether or not the school is going to shut down tomorrow, or whether, we're going to have to stay at home for a week, or whether our parents aren't going to be able to come for Thanksgiving. Like, we're kind of prepared for that expected change. And so, like Sharon, you said that we've gone through this pandemic now for 8-10 months. Now we're kind of at the point where, okay, we can deal with whatever comes, because now we're just like, fine, I'll wear a mask. Fine, I'll just stay home. It's difficult, but now we've got that under control. But then, like you said, there's all these other crises that keep coming up. And then the political atmosphere is divisive and hateful. And, all of the things that have gone on with the election and the race riots and all of the things that are just so traumatic, that we've got to maybe take that minute to center and to find, like, what is our actual strength here? Is my strength based on being able to go see my grandparents for Thanksgiving? Like, is my strength based on whether or not I have the rituals? Like you said, like, even the graduation for the kids, like, these are things that we grew up with, that has been an important part of our tradition. Maybe those are all going to change now. And doesn't mean like next year we won't have those, but like, what if we could build traditions on things that aren't going to be shaken?
Oh, that is so good. I like that, because we actually can have new traditions.
Yeah.
Because, and here's the thing, and the reason I say this is because a lot of times, if we feel robbed or we feel slighted, we can actually project that and give that to someone else. I was really I was kind of proud of the schools, and like some of the things they did, since people didn't get a graduation, instead of just saying, well, you don't get one. Like, people really became innovative with ways to celebrate their folks. And I was like, drive-by used to mean something completely different to me. But now a drive-by celebration where, you know what I'm saying? And so, and that's what I'm saying, now what? Because it has been so polarized, especially with the election. And this is not about for, con, anything pro, con, none of that. What I am against is just this animosity everywhere. It's not just one. And so this is not to say, well, they no, the animosity, because now what? Now what? We still go to the bank. We still have grocery stores. And even with the pandemic in the workplace, I don't know what to do, because we're still in the pandemic. We've been in the pandemic. And so now we've been in it long enough for us to really begin to plan. I know, like with LaWayne and myself, it didn't take us very long. We were like, oh, we got to lean in. This is, for those of us in healthcare, this is not going to be gone by Easter. And so we knew. And so, but then when there are also some people who are in healthcare who still waiting, well, we got to wait and see. And my personal opinion is wait and see. Wait and see is okay in some areas that are outside of your control, but there's some things, it's been consistent for a while now. Like if your friend cheats or your girlfriend cheats, you can't be mad on the 6th or 7th time they cheat. They're consistent.
That's right.
What can you do with what you're in control with? And that's what we're talking about today for the community. What are you going to do?
And Sharon, we're saying now what I think is important for us to really dig in here. One piece of advice is we can't minimize other people's circumstances. But we just discussion about our children not being able to graduate. I know so many folks from my hometown in New York that actually lost loved ones. They lost grandparents. So there's levels to this. Everyone's pain is not the same. Everyone's perception is not the same. Everyone's reality is not the same. There's different degrees of crisis. There's different degrees of sadness. There's different degrees of hope. So we need to really dig deeper and be conscious when we're speaking to someone that we truly may not understand where they're coming from in this new reality. And that can be a coworker at work. That could be a stranger walking by. We have to really dig deep to understand everyone's not in that circle of, hey, I don't even have a pair of shoes to wear today because I lost my job and it was a chain effect. No job, no home, etc. The state I'm in, they didn't have mortgage relief. I had to pay rent. I had to, live up to these expectations. Although the reality around me has changed. And this is going to be a long-term and impactful change. Consider this, right? Some of my older relatives, my great aunt, no matter how sick she would get, she would refuse to go to the hospital. And growing up, I didn't know why. I couldn't understand why. And until I read a book called Medical Apartheid. And in that book, it outlined the amount of trauma and crises around a certain time period that Black and brown women had to undergo from healthcare professionals. So now, although she may have been a child during that era, it stuck with her. It changed her perception, it changed her reality, and she now adopted new norms, and she taught those new norms to her children. For the fast forward, my mother-in-law would tell me when she lived in Germany, they had to do bomb drills. And every day she had to get under a desk because there might have been bombs coming. It got to a point that the children in her era, although the sirens would ring, you can no longer hear it because you heard out. So current state, we're not in COVID, we're in masks. Things will never be the same. And none of us can really predict what the new norm will be, but there has to be a new norm. As humans, we're extremely resilient, but we have to take things slowly and know that we're not all at the same starting point. Some folks have experienced some real serious traumas, there's life traumas that were then compacted or compounded with COVID. So I think we should really dig in. So we have so many people in the audience from different degrees of happiness and sadness. So we have to come from a place to make sure we capture as many stories as we can. But I think now the only way forward is straight ahead. Unfortunately, we've been through worse. In some of our communities, we've been through a lot worse. It's this collectivism. And it didn't help that our country is at this phase politically, like Sharon said, there's so much tension in the air. So much. You don't know how to interpret a smile. Is it a smile to say hello, or is it a I got you smile? We just have to get back to basics here. We need neighbors to be neighbors. We need to support those basic norms that help us get to this point. So I think it's important.
Right. You touched on such a good point because we talking about masks, and I was just like, and then we're like, now what? So we've been in this for 8-9 months, whatever. And a couple days ago, I was in the grocery store, and I'm just in line, and I'm looking at people, and I see still, masks below the nose, and I saw another young lady who was probably more of a teenager age, but she didn't have a mask on at all. And I was just like, and so at some point, it's like, I remember when it was taboo. Can't walk in the store. There were people monitoring if you came in, if you didn't have on appropriate PPE. And now it's kind of like we become a little bit more lax all of a sudden. And then you see the spike. You hear the spike in the news about these particular cases, especially where I live in an inner city. So but it's just like, well, are we all in the same normal? Because to me, it's like, if I go to the door and I don't have a mask, I have a backup mask in my purse. I have one in the car. Like, I have things in place because I just need to be prepared in case I jump out the car real quick or go somewhere to have a mask on, because that's what to me is my new normal now. And, have an array of these different things. And so how do people, at this point, it's like, well, how long does it take for people to jump on to this particular lifestyle change? What's the acceptable challenge for us going forward?
Well, I think that's what LaWayne is saying. It comes from different things. A lot of people say we're all in the same boat. We're not all in the same boat. I saw something, and I believe it was on social media. We're not all in the same boat. We may all be in the same storm. But somebody may be in a submarine. Someone may be in a tugboat. Someone may be in a rowboat. Somebody may just be floating along on a piece of driftwood. You know what I'm saying? Somebody may be on a yacht. Somebody may be on a cruise ship. So we're not all in the same boat. Right. And that, I believe, is what LaWayne is saying as far as perspective. I think what everybody said, especially LaWayne, I'm glad that you came back with that. I love that about this show. We don't have to agree, but we are all here. And so how do we, again, one thing about trauma, if you do not know it or you don't understand how it works, it can hold you and you won't know that you're held and you pass on trauma. Like, no shade on the grandmother, like a lot of people's parents don't know how to swim. They're not taking you to the pool and to the beach because they want to protect you. And their job is to protect you and keep you safe. So they're not taking you to the hospital, the syphilis, just different things, I bet the same thing with Native Americans. No, we don't want any blankets. Thank you. We've had enough, so, but what happens is that trauma sticks. And so then we pass it on. And I can't say that it's wrong that it's passed on, but I can't say this. I can't say on that either way because they didn't give me a blanket, That's not my boat. That's not, I'm not in that boat. I don't want people though to be stuck. And this time next year, come spring, we're still polarized and only, and that could be my personal thing. Like, we're neighbors. Like, at the end of the day, the good does outweigh the bad, even though the bad gets more attention.
That's right.
Right.
Very true.
Well,
Very true.
and maybe one of the things I'm hearing is that with some empathy, we can just ask people what boat they're in, metaphorically. Just say, hey, I'm going through this kind of trauma right now. What are you? How are you? Like, what is it that's the most destructive thing right now? And how can I help? Or, those are kind of platitudes, but at the same time, like, we got a comment from James Barber about having just mental health checks would be a really important thing for businesses and workplaces to be doing with their employees, and people in the community, as parents, being able to check in with our kids. Like, my kids' school was shut down just for one day because of COVID, but it was a sudden thing and it shook them a bit. My daughter was like having a lot of anxiety. She's scared about getting COVID. She, but it was just like, take the time to check in and see where they're at, what can, and give space. Like even you're doing, Sharon, here, just giving space to talk about it. And those things really do help process the trauma.
And for those of you out there, please feel free to share this video. But we're doing it right now. What boat are you in? Are you floating on driftwood? Do you feel like you're in a submarine, which is really not affected by the storm because you're under the water and you used to being in the depths? Like, you float differently. What boat are you in? And like, are you angry about some things? And that's the thing too. A lot of times, well, I can't say a lot of times. Like, if you're angry about some things, like, you talk about the anger. And you say what it is. And sometimes people hear, sometimes they don't, sometimes you do other methods. But the first step is you have to acknowledge it. Now, if it's not acknowledged and you do other methods, I'm not pro, against, or whatever. I know that there are some people who just, if it's not this is sterile processing, you'll understand this. If it's not a problem for the OR, that it's only 2 people in that department, because everything is still getting done, even though your hair is falling out, you haven't eaten in 8 hours because the volume is so high and you have to get this productivity out. It's not a problem for the OR, not because they don't care about you, but because it's not affecting them. I'm just saying, even COVID wasn't a problem for America until it hit America, but it was always a problem. And so I understand that sometimes things are not really addressed until they hit. But again, we're here now. COVID's been here in America, at least since March. And so sometimes there's some people who are still stuck. Now, I'm not talking about the people who've experienced a loss, you know?
Right.
Death is a bugaboo, and it hits in so many different ways. But I am speaking to people who are still sitting around waiting on someone else to tell them what to do as it relates to your household or how you're going to take care of something. And to make people aware, like you said with your daughter, she had anxiety. That's your daughter. I was speaking with someone yesterday who's 15, not your daughter, someone I was working with, and I could tell they were so like distracted, and they were like, what about the election? And they were so serious. Like, my heart broke. They're like, the Klan's gonna shoot. Like, they worried about their brothers. It's not going to happen. Like, the news is a business. You know, and it just hit me like, wow, how many people are watching TV and saying stuff and unaware of the eyes and ears that are behind them? All of that anxiety, all of that rage, all of that fear, just all of that, anything that's not hope.
That's so powerful. So powerful.
So that's what I'm fighting against right now.
Karen, you know what's I think is also extremely vital. Yes, some are afraid, some are angry, some are upset, some are happy. We have to allow people to express themselves. You can't tell someone, although you're angry, keep that inside. Although you're stressed out, although you're mad, you have to allow people to get to the point of understanding what a mental checklist is. Get to the point of finding that spot that they can remember who they really are, what's their true purpose, or get to the point or path of trying to find that true purpose. One thing that binds us as Americans, whether you're indigenous Native American, an immigrant, or other, it was our ability to give. You know, that's powerful. It wasn't the military; it was our ability to give. So I think everyone, as going back to our core, we have to give more. You know, you have to give more to your neighbor. You have to give more to your household, and giving more doesn't just imply financially. It can be emotionally. It can be more time. It can be more attention, but you have to give more. Even though you think you're at the end of the barrel, you got 2 beans left. Time to cut those beans in half and share them. You have to give more. We have to get back to our center.
Right.
Is okay, Lisa, I'm gonna let you do it. I want to say one thing. Would there be something like when you're feeling down or depressed and then you kind of go volunteer? And you end up feeling better after you volunteered and helped somebody else?
Great point. Sharon, you know what? And then let Lisa and the team jump in. I always remember this. If I'm feeling really down or low, I know for a matter of certainty that someone else is feeling 100 times worse than me.
Right.
And that at the level I'm at that current stage, I can uplift them. I can empower them to move forward. And by you empowering someone else, it's a domino effect. You know, they're gonna transfer that kinetic energy to someone else. They're gonna share that good word. Your conversation with that 15-year-old young lady yesterday, I can bet my last dollar she shared that conversation with someone else. You helped her grow right in that moment, and that's going to be passed on.
Lisa, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, it's good. This is such good stuff. And Luane, I was just going to say, how would you say someone could go into a situation where they themselves feel depleted in their strength, their resources, they need help, they need strength, but then they see somebody else who needs help too? Like, what would you say to them? How would they be able to help when their own resources are depleted?
You know what, Lisa? I've had relatives who were in the middle of this pandemic in New York City when it was heightened, and I'm in North Carolina. So their version of COVID-19 was way different than mine. You know, my environment didn't mandate us to wear masks. It was still life as usual. It was still kids in the park without masks on. So the best thing I can do was offer up myself with a simple question: how can I help? You know, not saying I'm there for you, but that's sort of closed-ended. I had to open it up and pretty much say, how can I help? And based on their response, I was able to dive in, and if it was something I couldn't contribute to, I was able to make a phone call. I was able to tell someone else. I was able to tap into a depleted resource that they thought sometimes was perception. You know, we see people at their core, they think they have no more. They think they can't run another lap. They believe they can't spend one more day in this horrible job until you train yourself and tell yourself, what am I doing this for? You know, many times it's not just for a Luane or Lisa or Lila. You were doing it for someone behind us. What's also important, I believe, is to just imagine some of your own ancestors or your foremothers and fathers, some of the trials and tribulations they had to endure. Pick something, voting, right? Imagine what some folks had to do for that basic privilege to vote. Or imagine not only were we in a struggle for the right to vote, simultaneously, this is before civil rights now, we were fighting for women's right to simply exist, right? And then you transfer the women's right to simply exist to voters' right. We, on top of that, we have multiple populations fighting for survival. You know, America's now becoming a dominant economy. The Native Americans are being depleted. All of the above. So when you really get at your low, I think it's important to think back to that aunt who was afraid to go to the doctor. Think that 15-year-old little girl who is traumatized about something she cannot directly impact on a national level just because of her age. So we just have to know that there's levels to it. Your bottom could be someone else's top.
Okay.
That was
really good.
Yeah.
Again, I know stuff is so polarized, but I was just thinking about all of this, and I was like, okay, so catharsis. You said because people do have to be able to express themselves. So let's talk about some expression ways. And listen, I'm not talking about, to be clear, I am not talking about civil injustice or sexism injustice. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm saying in your house and you in your job, what are some ways of expression? I mean, because you angry, all right, your boss lied on you again, or your boss went off on you because maybe they're not emotionally mature enough. So you are angry or whatever. Like, so what are ways that people can express? There are healthy ways to express as well. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying, I mean, civil unrest and things like that, that's what's going on outside. I'm talking what's inside. So that you are positioning, you and your loved ones for the future. So you have the catharsis, which is get it all out. What are healthy ways to get it all out? Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking back to some of like our early shows, going back to the archives of Knowledge and Nonsense. And I can remember one of the first things that I really started noticing was just, you really start to learn a lot about people during this crisis and their approach to how they handle this particular moment in time. And that is still ongoing. But I'm finding that even I'm still getting shocked by some of the responses to people in leadership, the responses to people in, education, people in healthcare, and just the general world, because I feel that people still haven't yet quite figured out how to process this. They haven't, they want things that there's such a rush to get things back to how they were, that they're willing to, jeopardize other things and not really have that same level of empathy that they once had, back in March. It's changed, right? We're in November. I expect for you to have figured out what you want to do with your childcare situation by now, as opposed to saying, well, this is reality. no one knows what's going on with school from one day to the next, but yet we're here. And so for me, I think that was probably one of the more difficult things to kind of navigate around, is that, I have expectations of what I need for my own personal life and my own personal family. But then I have these work expectations and what they expect for me to do. And then I have my expectations for my children and what I expect for them to do. And we're all still messing, trying to figure out what to do and make this some kind of solid approach.
Yeah. This is crisis management. And one of the things we have to manage, which we do, CS Assist, I know you do it, SIPS. Shout out to SIPS, one of our sponsors. Yeah. They do this too. But like, you have to manage expectations. That's one of the things when I'm training people on leadership, as they are becoming more like moving up from supervisor manager to the executive, you have to manage expectations within yourself and outside of yourself. And so what you just said was like you mentioned expectations quite a bit, but you mentioned it from different people. And that's what we have now, is a bunch of people's expectations, and we all are expecting different things. Yes. And we all believe that our expectation is the right thing.
Supposed to be right there at the top.
And that's what I was saying earlier. Is perception reality? Or is it just perception? I know y'all mad at me. I'm just saying, but that's what we're doing, right? Knowledge and nonsense.
Good.
You taking us to a realm of not even physics, quantum physics.
I'm just saying, man. Like, it sounds good. Perception is reality. Sticks and stones may break my bones. Words will never hurt. That's not true. But perception is reality, maybe to the person who's perceiving it, but maybe they don't know that's just perception.
You know what?
Everybody has different perceptions.
That's very true. It's very true. One thing I've learned, team, is not at work, whether you're the boss, the manager, the technician, I'm putting that definite article "the" there for a reason. You can't be the boss, the technician, the manager at home, right? You gotta transition, and I've had to learn that. To manage expectations, and that there are some expectations that I have to meet, that I can't fail. For instance, my daughters expect me to listen to them when they have something to tell me. So no matter the time of day, no matter if I'm tired or whatever's going on, I have to make that happen, because by ignoring that, you'll never get that moment again. Not the exact same time, because time is still moving.
And you will be changing her perception.
That's right.
Of a father.
That's right. Yep. I think we can learn a lot from children. My youngest daughter, she would go in the backyard and just scream to the top of her lungs. I'm like, why are you screaming? What is wrong with you? What do you mean? Come join me, right? So you ask how to get back to that place, that center spot. Music is one thing I recommend. Go back to that song or that band or that group that put you in that happy place, and listen to that song. Listen to it as many times as you need to bring a smile. For me, I love comedy. I love some of the old school greats. I love watching the Richard Pryors of the world and the Eddie Murphys. So you got to find, some people use different forms of art. Some people like to write. Some people like to dance or just act silly. Whatever it is that created that happy place for you, you need to not forget you. You have to fall in love with you again. If you focus on you, you're going to be no good for them or we. So it's important to focus on you just a little bit more.
Yeah, and this morning, like, I was dancing to The Greatest Showman, Come Alive. And that's how I woke up, and I'm in it. I was like, let's do it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I stopped you, Lisa.
That's good. I love it. No, I agree. I think joy is something that I've been focusing on too lately. And one way that I think is really helpful for me is gratitude. And a lot of people have a gratitude practice already, which is great. And I think it's Stacey Flowers, who's another inspirational speaker and teacher, but she does a gratitude walk. And I just started doing this a month or two ago, but basically just taking a walk like you would normally, but while you're walking, you're speaking the things that you're grateful for. So just like out loud or quietly, but I just think, like, I'm grateful for my family. I'm so grateful that I've got money in the bank to buy groceries. I'm thankful for my husband's job. I'm grateful for the clothes in my closet. I'm grateful that I can do laundry because that means I've got clothes. I'm grateful for the food in my pantry, you know. And as you're walking, like 10 minutes into like listing all these things that you're grateful for, you can't help but smile. You like, by the end of my walk, I'm like lighter. I'm like, there's a spring in my step, you know. And so I think there's no joy without gratitude. So just as much as you can to press into that gratitude, because there's always, even in suffering and even in painful times, there are things to be grateful for. So it's what you focus on, what you put your attention on is what gets energy. So yeah, focus on what's going good. Focus on the things that are helpful and that you're grateful for.
Yes, what you focus on, you will gravitate toward. Bottom line. And so I'm going to do a commercial. I know, guys, thank you so much for being on, because these are some of the conversations. These are some of the conversations we have. There are some voices that appear to be louder or maybe more visible than others. And I definitely want to make visible voices that are not saying, you know, let's go to war. You know, I don't want a war. I don't want a war. That doesn't mean that capitulation, I'm going to capitulate on some areas that, no, I don't want that either. You know, if that is, but like there are other options. You can take a grateful walk. Like what you focus on is what you gravitate toward. And even with the young lady, she was unaware that that's all she was focusing on, because that's all other people were focusing on. And so,
very good.
Go ahead.
Before we go to commercial, can I just say one more thing? Because Lisa,
absolutely. This is the now what? Now what? Now what do we do?
So Lisa, I shared an article on a team call yesterday from Forbes magazine, Forbes.com. And the article was about gratitude at work. And there was a section in the article. It said gratitude helps you filter information differently. Gratitude filters information differently. So what you said about gratitude was spot on. And it can be used in so many areas. You know, my lesson on poverty was short but impactful. You know, growing up, I would say, Mom, can I get the new sneakers? And she would say, you know, you have a pair of sneakers that should last you the whole summer, per se. But these kids here don't have shoes. So if it wants the kid to think, I'm worried about the next pair of sneakers when these kids here don't have shoes. So certainly grateful.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I have a grateful journal too. And, you know, for those of you out there who are listening, you know, because there's always some. I mean, I can feel it, and you know it too. That you can be in a training and everybody's on board, and you have somebody be like, yeah, that don't work. You know, there's always some. So, I mean, if you're out there and you're like, yeah, that sounds good, but that's not helping me get my child to health care or feed my family, we understand. We're not saying that you don't need child care or you don't need to feed your family. We're not saying that at all. I am saying that when you practice something like gratefulness, what happens is your mind stops looking at only problems, and you begin to see, oh, you know what? There are some solutions. I've made it through some things. What did I do? It begins to create the like the synapses in your brain begin to point toward solutions, possibilities. It's like looking out over the Grand Canyon. All of a sudden, you begin to think about what's possible instead of just what's wrong and what's not possible. You're way more innovative than you think. You're way more resilient than you think. And I'm sorry. I know I'm not making light of nothing. Trust me. I know that is crazy. But if you only focus on crazy, then your response will be crazy. I need your response to level up. I need your response to be solution oriented. It sucks. And if you only focus on the suck, it's not going to stop sucking. So I know that sounds a little bit strong, but I just wanted to share that. And then we're going to go on this break. And when we come back from the break, we'll talk some more about this, but I also would like to talk about how we can recognize certain conversations and whether this conversation is going to put us in a better space or in a worse space. How we can lead a conversation without necessarily being the leader. Does that make so? Yeah, it's a little crazy. Just stick with me. We'll be right back on Knowledge and Nonsense. This is Catharsis, and now what? And we're back. Thank you so much. LaWayne actually sent me the link with the Forbes about attitude of gratitude in the workplace. LaWayne, I will put the thing up also about medical apartheid, because that does. And listen, with medical apartheid, that's a really, that's a great read. It's recommended by a lot of people. Please read it. Please read it objectively. And if you are not in a place where you can read it without wanting to storm the castle at work, and then maybe maybe read the Cliff Notes, or let somebody help read it with a group of people so you can process and express the feelings that are going to come up when you read that book. Other people, as you read, whoever reads the book, it really will give you understanding of things that may seem foreign to you. So we're back. How do we, everyone's just looking at me, but I feel like everyone's thinking. Lisa, I'm just going to let you talk for a little bit. I have now put you on the spot.
All right. Well, I think that moving forward, like now what is probably where I am personally. Like I've had to just kind of pare down all of my things that I thought I was responsible for or would have done in the past. So now my list is a lot shorter, and I have had to deal with the guilt for like saying no to different responsibilities, or like I, had the opportunity to apply for different jobs or positions or volunteer work, and I just have had to say no. And not because they were wrong or anything like that, just it wasn't the time for it. And I think recognizing what season you're in personally, and then as well as community, the world, just recognize what season you're in, and then you can say yes or no to the things that could be on your plate. So for me, it's been helpful just to pare down. And then when I say yes to something, I can really put my energy into it and be fully present there.
That's good. That's good. Go ahead. I was going to ask, what are some other changes, but you guys can speak to what Lisa just said too.
No, I think that was great, because it's nice to be able to be in the place where you can kind of reflect on the things that are really important. I remember I was sharing with a friend that right before everything kind of shut down, I was sitting there thinking about how my life was going to transition. I knew that my oldest was going to go off to college, and that trying to figure out how we were going to grasp onto these last family moments, right? Because we were going to change the dynamic of our family for forever at this point. She was transitioning into an adult, and I had to start letting go. And I said kind of one of the moments that people were talking about, it was some kind of workshop at work, and we were talking about things that were going on during quarantine. People talking about gaining weight, working out, whatever it was. And for me, I was just like, I really enjoyed the fact that everyone had to be home. We had to be, we needed to spend time together. And I remember asking God, how am I going to get this moment? How am I going to start, latching on to these last moments in the house? And I got them. And may not have been what I was thinking in the grand scheme of things, but I did get them. We got some more personal family time. We had more movie nights. We didn't feel obligated to go out and do those events and things that were going on in the world because nothing was happening, right? We had those moments of, I didn't have to rush off to a meeting with the PTA, or I didn't have to worry about what was going on after work, or, getting somebody to a practice or to whatever. I was able to kind of just relax and get into that space of reconnecting with my family. And for me, that was probably, that initial quarantine was probably one of the best moments. And I hold on to that because I know that for whatever reason, I feel like I needed it. And that was what I kind of took more than anything. I was able to reflect like Lisa, what's really important at this point, and how, and maybe everything that I thought I really needed to do is really not, in the grand scheme of things, something that I have to do, and that I can pick and choose a little bit more. And it doesn't have to seem as selfish, because I can, easily say, well, COVID's going on, I'm not coming to this event before that, or I'm not going to travel here for this. And but I was able to kind of just hold tight to my family for a minute and for a moment. And I had to let them go a little bit, but I was able to hold tight to them. And I'm thankful for that. I'm truly grateful for that moment.
That's powerful.
But what about the guilt? Lisa had mentioned like the guilt. And like we're females, and I'm sorry, you're the man. You're the man on this screen. You're the man anyway. You're the man. But what about the guilt? Because I know as myself, I can feel guilty for, but I have to like vet it out. I have to say, is it knowledge or nonsense? Is this true guilt or is this false responsibility? You know, I know to ask myself those questions. But for you, as far as being, you know, in yourself, like, how do you even experience guilt with some of the things that maybe you had to cut out, or even if you had to cut out anything? Not you. Can you speak as a man on this? You know, so
yeah, absolutely. So we mentioned the new norm, right? Our new norm is other folks' old norm. I urge you to Google a woman named Elizabeth Quigley. She's a BBC reporter, news writer. She has MS for the last 20 years. So she was on top of her game when she had to, because of her illness, she had to begin to wear masks and begin to work from home for years and reorganize her whole existence. So now, when you fast forward, with life still going on, she still has a career, but it's different now. She has to work from home to protect herself from this illness. Now this is our reality. So our new reality, and she's not the only one, has some folks have been dealing with this for years. So my level of guilt is I transition that guilt to being humble, right? Whatever it is you have to be humble, right? We gotta be grateful and humble that there's someone else who's facing a different circumstance, not quite like yours, and we may not have the strength to wear their shoes. We may not have the endurance to walk their walk, but we're here. Just being an example, we have to remember that our blessings, no matter how small you think they are, they're ginormous. It's like a breadcrumb on an anthill. That's just a breadcrumb. To that little ant, this is food for the whole winter.
Yes,
right? We did it. So we have to keep that humble stance. And model. We have to do that.
Come on, what we're disdaining may be somebody hitting the jackpot. Yes, you're right. I love that.
Absolutely.
We just came up with that. That's good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Breadcrumbs. The power of a breadcrumb. Yeah, I'm gonna take that somewhere else on that one. I'm gonna take that to another arena. But you just dropped something on me, Dwayne. Thank you so much. So let's go to the jobs, because I know Sips has a job fair coming up. So before I play that commercial, there are some people who will probably there are people, period, who are out of work. And again, giving props to Sips because I love them. But Sips has an online school, a school to teach you a new trade, and they're hiring in that same trade. So there are opportunities out there. I think we just have to look for them. Now because we said catharsis, and now what? This is the hot seat question. There has been a phrase that's like, oh, how does it go? How does it go? But it talks about, some people talk about people, some people talk about things, and some people talk about ideas. I don't know if I'm saying the quote right. Have you guys heard that quote?
Yeah.
And I think it says like small minds talk about people.
Something like that, yeah.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe medium minds talk about things, and you know, the better thing is like talk about ideas. So how do we help navigate conversations? You got to know when to listen and be empathetic. But when somebody is just, and not everyone, different boats, when you know in your knower that someone is just rolling around in that mud because they like, I don't care, I'm not moving, I hate them all, you know, and that is their stance. How do you navigate that? Like, do you continue to try to bring them up? Do you sit in the mud with them? If so, how long do you sit in the mud with them to display your empathy and let them know that they're loved and you really do care? And how do you make sure that you don't take mud home? Hot seat question.
That's
so
powerful.
What we do before we answer, y'all ready? Y'all ready to jump in now? Y'all
want me to we are ready.
All right, let's do it.
Oh, look, team. Lila, you want to go first?
No, I'm gonna need a second because
Luann, you're ready. Luann, you go.
Okay. Sharon, I think what I know from my experience, you can't save everyone. Sometimes you have to meet people where they are, and unfortunately, you have to leave them where they are, because no matter how much you invest or divest of yourself, they're not going to be able to deposit it. they're not going to be able to utilize the tools, the resources you're giving them to empower themselves. They're stuck in a space that they made a conscious decision to be stuck in. And when you're facing that circumstance, the only healing method is time. You only hope and pray that time will allow them to understand the resources that were provided, the tools that were given, so they can dig themselves out. But I learned from some of my elders that you can't save everyone, and there are going to be those people that you have to meet them where they are and leave them where they are.
Yeah. I agree. I think too, like there are some people who are, I would consider toxic in their mindset, where like Sharon said, they're just rolling around in the mud and they like it there, and that's where they feel strong. They feel like powerful when they can rage against the injustice or whatever it is that they're feeling. But I think as mature people, we can be a light. We can come into a situation with that mindset of, like Sharon said, thinking of ideas instead of about people or things. But when we go into these conversations or relationships, that if we can be strong, and I'll just say, if I can be strong in who I am and knowing that my presence can change the atmosphere around me, which I really believe, like when you know who you are and you can see a better future, when you go into a conversation, you don't have to get pulled down because like you can skillfully change the course of a conversation. And usually what I find is the people that like to roll around in the mud will stop talking, or they will leave, or whatever it is. They'll give up because it's not worth it to them to be around good, feely, happy things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I hang around with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds that works.
For me, and the reason why I paused was not because I didn't have an answer ready, but because I remember just last week, Sharon and I had a brief conversation, and she was preparing me for the next level, right? And she gave me some advice, and she was just like, just be prepared for what's going to happen. As I just recently went into published author status and that's what it was. And I reflected on that probably more than she probably even would even like to know, but I reflected on those comments from our conversation personally. And then I remember, something just made me think about, T.D. Jakes talks about giraffes and turtles. And if you've ever heard that, look it up on YouTube. But it made me realize that there are different levels. And sometimes that, and the bottom line of what it is that a giraffe and a turtle shouldn't be conversing on the same level. And that ultimately, if a giraffe has to put his head down to the ground to speak to the turtle, then he's going to lose oxygen and therefore pass out or collapse or whatever. And so so it made me start thinking about the fact that I really can't concern myself what's going on in different levels that I'm not on anymore. I have to keep moving myself forward and try to progress beyond that. And that's how I was interpreting that particular statement in question about moving forward. I was just like, as I'm rising to levels, I can't sit there and keep trying to figure out what's going on with everyone on that level with me. Either, because if I'm going to agree to meet you there, then at some point in time, I have to be willing to stay there or focus there. And I don't want to stay there if that's not where I'm supposed to be right now. If it's time for me to move on and elevate, then that's what I want to do. I just kind of invite you to look at that, look it up on YouTube about that T.D. Jakes when he talks about turtles and giraffes, because it's very interesting, very powerful, and how you think and what you think about for that moment. It's not saying anyone's better than anyone else, but you have to know where you are, and you have to understand what that means in your moment. Because if you entertain these other things that are going on in other areas, you're not really focusing on what you need to survive and how you're going to move forward.
Well said.
That's very well said. And here I'm jumping in on that because this is one of the intangible things that create a tangible outcome, whether positive or negative. The giraffe and the turtle are both right in their perspective. You know, that turtle is living his best life, as is the giraffe. But sometimes, because even how people look at social media, you may be a giraffe, but the turtle gets to swim in the water. And now you want to be in the water all the time. That's not that's not where you're going to find your hum, always in water like that, because trees aren't always in water, and you need to be over there eating on some, And so the same thing with eagles and pigeons. People say it, and it almost has a disparaging thing toward pigeons. Now, pigeons are cool. People like to be around pigeons. People go to the park and feed pigeons. Pigeons are, the party is where the pigeons are. You know what I'm saying? You need a movement, grab pigeons. Don't act like pigeons. Pigeons are, everyone has everybody. And so a lot of times we see things and then we try to make everything like the same. And eagle is never going to be a pigeon. And a pigeon is never going to be an eagle. They are both birds and they do both fly. And you can be grateful that you fly, or you can be mad that you don't fly like the eagle. Or you can be mad that people don't give me bread. How come they don't feed me bread and come to the party? Perspective. Okay, I'm a hush. I see LaWayne. I see everybody got something they want to say.
No, I'm an attentive listener. So I agree. I just shared the link from TD Jakes. I will be watching it shortly after. Very powerful. And this, I have to, full transparency. This is one of my favorite shows. I say that a lot because they keep getting better and better. So Sharon, kudos to you for hosting an awesome event.
Yeah, I thank y'all for allowing me for joining us on this topic. This is a topic that makes people reflective, and sometimes it makes them uncomfortable, because we do listen. Mud is warm. Mud is warm. Who doesn't want to be warm? And so sometimes this makes people a little uncomfortable. But my job with Knowledge and Nonsense is we just want to vet the process. You can stay in the mud. Be warm. It's okay. We just want to say, is it knowledge? Is it nonsense? And now what? Because I don't want people to stay extremely polarized where you don't have to be polarized. And I don't want you to unwittingly pass this on to people who you love because you don't recognize what you're carrying if it's vitriol, if it's venom. If you're poisonous and you don't know you're poisonous, I want to let you know, hey, bruh, you're infected. Yeah. You may not have, I was about to say something about COVID. You may not have what a lot of people are battling against right now, but right now you're still infected. And that we need to remove their poison. Okay, so listen, I'm going to play the commercial for the job. I went in. Yes, I love what I get to do. Absolutely love what I get to do.
You do it well.
So let's do this for sips, and then we'll be right back. And I'm going to let everybody say something closing before we leave. Is that all right?
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Excellent.
You are invited to our virtual job fair coming up on November 10th through November 12th from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central. Register now at www.sipsconsults.com. Click on Careers and scroll down to the virtual job fair registration. You will want to register now to secure your virtual interview with one of our recruiters. We need sterile processing technicians, endoscopy technologists, educators, and consultants. Again, you can register now at www.sipsconsults.com. Click on Careers, scroll down to the virtual job fair, and register. There are limited time slots for the virtual interviews. If you want an opportunity that have assignments that allow you to travel and are excited about the skills you bring to this arena, then we want you. You can register early to secure your interview at www.sipsconsults.com. Click on Careers, scroll down to the virtual job fair, and apply now.
All right, we're back with our closing thoughts for this segment of Knowledge or Nonsense. I want to thank Lisa Hyde, LaWayne Perkins, and Lila Price for joining us today as we talk about catharsis and now what? Like, what will we do with what we're responsible for? How do we move forward from this place? We just came off of an election. Right now, I don't know that if anything's even been decided, but like now what? A lot of people have put so much time and energy into the election, so much conversation into the election, so much conversation into COVID, so much energy into COVID, so much energy into different things. And those things, that season is ending now. So now what? We have about 9 weeks left in this year. 9 weeks left that we can absolutely crush. We can absolutely kill it. Books can be written and published in 9 weeks. There's so many things you can do in 9 weeks if we just use this time like wisely toward things you want to do. So just thank you so much for joining. And you guys, if you can give us some closing thoughts, anyone can just jump in. Luane, hold the anchor. You hold the anchor, Luane. You hold the anchor.
I'll take it. Thank you for hosting such a good show. Closing thoughts. Focus more on being grateful for what you have rather than complain about what you don't have. And an attitude of gratitude will keep those blessings coming your way.
Absolutely. I second that. Thank you. This has been a great show as always. I always enjoy sharing my views and listening to others and learn some valuable things along the way. So I appreciate all of you for, teaching me some things today. And I always take something away from these programs. So thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. And I'll echo the same thing. I'm so grateful just to be able to be here and have this conversation with all of you, Luane and Lila and Sharon. Thanks so much for having me. And I look forward to hearing more from all of you. You guys are all going to do great things, and even more than you've already done. So thanks.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us on Knowledge or Nonsense. Please share this video. Listen, the same way we are putting the link in here for the show with the turtle and the giraffe. This show is an answer for someone. This show might not tell you how to sterilize something to the T, but this show is a right now answer for a lot of people and what's going on right now in this season. So please share this show. Look at the show. I know it sounds crazy. Look at the show with your family. Look at the show with your friends and your pack and your posse and discuss some of the things that were discussed in this show. You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed at the different perspective. You may have somebody in your circle who's floating on driftwood and you didn't know it. And all you have to do is pull them up into your tugboat, rowboat, or yacht. And they'll be like, thank you so much. It'll go right back to what Luane was saying about the breadcrumb with the ant. So y'all be safe. God bless. Thanks so much for being here. And have a great one.
Thank you.